Japanese Tales, The Wine Spring. Once a monk, passing through the Omine Mountains, lost his way and found himself heading down into a totally unknown valley. In this valley was a large village. He was looking forward to asking where he was, but first he came to a roofed spring. The ground all around it was paved with stone, and he went for a welcome drink. He found the water was all yellow. It turned out actually to be wine. While he puzzled over this amazing discovery, a crowd of villagers gathered and wanted to know who he was. He explained how he happened to be there. "Come with me," one of them said. The monk followed unwillingly, wondering where they were off to and whether he would be killed. They got to a large, prosperous house, and a gentleman came out to meet them. He too asked the monk to explain himself, and the monk told his story much as before. The gentleman invited him in, fed him, and turned him over to a young man who was to escort him to the usual place. Apparently the gentleman was the mayor. The monk quaked in fear to imagine what the usual place might be, but now there was no escape. The young man led him to a deserted spot in the mountain, where he announced that he had brought him there to kill him. "People have wandered into the village as you did several times in the past," he explained. "We've always killed them because we're afraid they'll talk about us in the world outside. No one out there has any idea our village even exists, you see." The monk's mind froze, but in tears he managed to remind the young man that being a monk, he followed the path of the Buddha and was dedicated to the welfare of all. That was why he'd been passing through these mountains even in the first place. "You have no idea of the sacrifices I've made, of the labors I have performed in pursuit of my goal," he went on. "And now you are going to kill me, simply because I have lost my way. Of course I'm going to die in the end, I know, everyone is. That is not what I mind. It's just that it's such an awful sin for you to kill a blameless monk. Please, won't you let me live?" "I see," the young man replied. "Well, I'd like to let you go, but I'm so afraid of what would happen if you talked about us outside the valley." "Oh, but I won't talk about you. Of course I won't. A man values his life more than anything, and he never forgets what he owes someone who has saved him." "Well, all right, you are a monk. I can see that. I will let you go, as long as you'll keep this knowledge to yourself. I can just pretend that I killed you and tell that to the mayor." The monk swore every way he knew how that he would keep his mouth shut. And the young man, with many repetitions of this caution, showed him the path back to the outside world. One last time, the monk bowed to his benefactor, assuring him that he would never forget his kindness as long as he lived. Then, with deep tears of emotion on both sides, the two parted, and the monk followed the trail till it rejoined the normal path through the mountains. In due course, he got back to the village he had started from, and of course he had sworn himself to silence many times over. But he was a great talker, and was soon spouting the whole story to everyone. The general reaction was, "Tell me another," but he described the village and the spring wine in such eloquent detail that some high-spirited youths decided to check. It would be one thing if those villagers were gods or demons, but apparently they were just people. They could not be as scary as all that. Half a dozen of the strongest young braves set out, each armed with bow, arrows, and a club, and the monk went with them. Several older, more responsible people tried to stop them, warning them not to engage a completely unknown community on their own ground, but the hotheads paid no attention. The monk's eloquence had fired their imaginations. The parents and relatives who remained behind were very worried. The party did not return the day or the next. In fact, they never came back at all. No one volunteered to go after them. Amid lamentations, the matter was dropped. No doubt the whole party had been massacred. The monk had already distinguished himself with all this talk. He would have done much better to leave it all alone, and his audience would have done much better still to ignore his prattlings.